I saw the most interesting video today. It's on a YouTube channel called Your Everyday Theorist. The video is called The Disturbing Effect of Child Neglect. For my entire life, I've been living with my parents. I've never had a job, I've never had a friend, and I've never felt loved, even by my family. I went to public school up to 3rd grade, but since then I've been homeschooled. So I've been completely isolated from the outside world for basically all of my life. But because this was the only life I had ever known, I never realized how tragic it was. That is, until July of this year. I remember it was on either the 1st or the 2nd of July of this year that I almost cried myself to sleep because I realized my life was nothing. But even then, my brain only registered these as possibilities. However, this video that I just watched has awakened things in me yet again. In the video, a guy covers an animated short called Opal, which depicts concepts of childhood neglect. I'll leave a link to that video in the description if you want to know the details, unless I forget to put the link in the description, which would be very dumb of me. I found this video surprisingly relatable. However, there are a couple of major things that I don't relate to. First thing, the child in the video is malnourished, while I was lucky enough to have food whenever I wanted it. The family also uses her for their own ends. While I was never used or bossed around, I was just left alone most of the time, which is part of the problem. I was ignored. Now on to the things that I do find relatable. I have a list here. The first interesting thing is that the child is depicted as sneaking around the house to avoid contact with her family. I pretty much do the same thing. I've always watched the floor carefully to make sure I don't step on anything or bump into anything noisy, because I really don't like drawing attention to myself. There have even been times where my father came back home from store or whatever, and I rushed off to my room just to hide from him as he came back. To this day, I don't understand why I do that. I just like to be alone, I guess. I don't like contact with him. A more major detail, though, is that the child hates reality so much that they slip into a kind of fantasy world, which is the only place where they can be happy. Fantasizing has been a constant part of my life for as long as I can remember. I always imagine what I would like to have, never believing that I could have it, and yet not really caring. More specifically, the child fantasizes about this family on a billboard. She wishes that family could be hers. For me personally, I think my billboard would be YouTube. I watch people play video games and give their thoughts on things, and I, in a way, sort of fantasize like that's a form of socializing. I honestly don't really care about having a good family. I just want to be loved by someone. As a friend or lover, whatever. Next thing on the list is being treated as the bottom priority by your parents. This is actually an observation made by the commentator in the video. In the short, there's this narcissistic father character with all these mirrors around him, and he constantly shifts these mirrors so he sees himself instead of his kid. The commentator interpreted this as the parent putting their kid at a lower priority than themselves. And when he made that observation, that hit my heart really hard because I relate to that a lot. This is something my father does all the time. Whenever we play a game together, it lasts about 30 minutes, maybe an hour if I'm lucky. Whenever we play a fighting game together, he restricts our session to 6 matches. And he always says, let's play in an hour or 2 hours, even though there's nothing important that he's doing in that time. He watches YouTube, he looks at Facebook, and sometimes sleeps. And he always has some kind of excuse for it. It gives me more time to clean up the house. Let me finish watching Jeopardy first. I get tired of playing fighting games faster than you do. Oh, I just ate a big meal, I'm tired now. That's something he calls after-dinner lag, which was never a thing before. A couple years ago, he never got tired after eating a big meal. That was never a problem, but now all of a sudden it is. But when he plays with other friends of his, he has all the time in the world. There's a friend that he plays Dominion with sometimes, and for those who don't know, Dominion is a relatively long game. Each session can take about an hour, and he plays 2 or 3 sessions of Dominion with that person when he plays with them. And of course, with his friends, he doesn't say, oh, let's play in an hour. He says, sure, I'm ready to play right now. There have even been times where my father and I were in the middle of playing a game, and he said, sorry, my friend just started live streaming, and then he leaves. The worst part about it is that he doesn't admit it to himself. Actually, that's not the worst part about it. The worst part is it's the only life I've ever known, so I'm not encouraged to object to it. Next thing on the list is drunk parents. My mother died of cancer when I was 18, and ever since that my father has been drinking. 1 fish, 2 fish, old fish, new fish. Blue parent, red parent, drunk parent, dead parent. As for the last thing on the list, not being seen for who you are by your parents. My father neglects me the way he does because he doesn't realize that what I feel is real, or at least that's what I assume. He doesn't realize that my pain is actually there, and whenever I complain about it, he tends to think it's a joke. It's been so many years since the first time I complained to him about his delays when we had playtime. And since then, it's become sort of a running gag. Whenever he'd make one of his excuses, "Oh, I have after-dinner lag, I need another hour. That's another delay, ha ha ha." My father's going to hear what I'm saying right now. What do you think his reaction will be? Here's my prediction. He's going to approach me and he's going to say, "Oh, I've never neglected you. I just have my own priorities with what I like to do with my time." And I'm at the bottom of it. "You just need to learn that happiness comes from within. You can get help from a therapist." Because of course my pain is internal. It's all caused by myself. It has nothing to do with my living conditions. Or worse yet, he would just think I'm in a bad mood and this is not the way I feel all the time. One thing about his reaction is for sure. He is not going to change his ways. I have lost all faith in him. There is one human being that I hate in the universe, and it's my father. I've heard a story about a religious organization that went to someone's funeral to denounce them because they were gay. It was like some kind of weird protest or something. They denounced the deceased because they were gay in the middle of his own funeral. There are few things in the world more evil than that. My father is one of them, and I want this religious group to do that at my father's funeral. I will be at the forefront of this protest group wearing white, shouting about all the bad things that my father has done to me, and then I'll get arrested, and then my life will be complete.